My name is Lila Harrington, and I used to believe that love within a family was unconditional, that no matter what happened, blood was supposed to mean something. I believed that through every fight, every storm, every distance, love would stay. But I was wrong. The day I found out my parents had secretly bought my brother a house while pretending they had no money to help my daughter with her surgery was the day something inside me broke so quietly I almost didn't notice. It began one Tuesday morning. I was at the hospital cafeteria, sipping the kind of coffee that tastes like exhaustion, watching nurses hurry past me. My daughter Ava was upstairs, sleeping after another long night of oxygen tubes and heart monitors. She was only 6 years old, a fragile little girl with a smile that could melt the coldest hearts. She'd been born with a congenital heart defect, and after months of treatments, the doctors told me surgery was her only hope. It wasn't optional, it was survival. I remember staring at that medical bill $48.2 printed in cruel black letters. My savings account barely touched $5000. I had nowhere else to turn but my parents. So that afternoon, I drove to their house, my hands clutching the steering wheel tight enough to hurt. I told myself they'd understand. After all, they were my parents. When I walked into their kitchen, my mother was setting the table like she always did, everything perfect, everything cold. My father sat reading the newspaper, glasses perched low on his nose. Mom, Dad. I began, my voice trembling. I need help, it's Ava. The surgery. Before I could even finish, my mother raised her hand, silencing me. Lila, sweetheart, she said softly without looking at me. We just can't right now. Things are tight. I repeated, almost laughing. My father didn't look up from his paper. Dad, please, it's Ava. You know her condition. She needs this. She's your granddaughter. My father sighed, folding the paper slowly, as if weighing every word he was about to say. She's adopted, Lila. You can't expect us to. I froze. What? She's not blood. He said quietly. You have to understand. Family helps family. It's not the same. I stood there, staring at them, feeling my world tilt. Not the same. I whispered, she calls you Grandpa. My mother's face softened, but only slightly. It's not about that, honey. We just don't have the money right now. Mason's situation is different. Mason. My golden boy brother, the one who never worked a day in his life, who always borrowed and never repaid. I didn't argue anymore. I just stood there, silent, while my father picked up his paper again, signaling that the conversation was over. I turned to leave, and my mother said, I'll pray for her. That night, I sat on my couch beside Ava's hospital bed, holding her tiny hand. She smiled at me in her sleep, and I promised her silently, I'll fix this, no matter what it takes. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through social media during my break at work when something stopped me cold, a post from my cousin, with a photo of Mason standing in front of a brand, new house. The caption read, so proud of my favorite guy. Congrats on the new place, gifted with love from Mom and Dad. I stared at that picture for minutes that felt like hours. The background was familiar, the realtor's sign, the driveway. My father's old truck was parked right beside the mailbox. I zoomed in just to be sure. There was no mistake. They had bought him a house. My throat went dry. I called my mother immediately. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I just saw something online. Mason, did you and Dad buy him a house? There was a pause. Then she sighed tiredly, as if I'd caught her in something small, not cruel. Lila, please, it's not like that. Mason's starting a family. He needed help. So did I. I said quietly, Ava needs surgery. Her tone hardened. You're making this about money again. We do what we can for who we can. You chose to adopt, honey. That was your decision. Something inside me snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, I understand, and hung up. That night, I opened my laptop and started digging. Years ago, when my parents had some trouble managing bills, I helped them set up online banking. My name was still linked as an authorized user on one of their old investment accounts. When I logged in, I froze. The down payment for Mason's house, $82,000, had come directly from that account, and part of that money was mine. I had contributed $25,000 from my savings 5 years earlier when we invested as a family. They used my money. I sat there shaking, staring at the screen. Then I began printing everything: receipts, transactions, property records. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but I knew I wouldn't stay quiet anymore. The next few days passed in a blur. I worked, visited Ava, barely slept. But something else grew inside me, a calm, cold clarity. My parents had drawn a line in the sand, and I was standing on the wrong side. But they forgot one thing. I was done playing the obedient daughter. The following Friday, I got an unexpected invitation, a text from Mom. "Housewarming for Mason this Sunday. You should come. Let's be a family again." Be a family again. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. Sure, I typed back, "I'll be there." The day of the party, I dressed simply, a dark blue dress, the one Ava always said made me look strong. I printed a few more documents and slipped them into my purse. When I arrived, Mason's new house was buzzing with laughter and chatter. My parents were standing near the patio, talking to guests, faces glowing with pride. "Lila," my mother exclaimed when she saw me. "You made it, of course," I said, smiling. I wouldn't miss it. They guided me inside, showing me the living room, the big kitchen, the backyard. Everything was perfect, like a glossy magazine spread. I pretended to admire it, nodding, saying all the right things, but every compliment tasted bitter. At one point, I caught Mason by himself near the bar. He grinned. "Hey sis, not bad, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "Really nice," he chuckled. "Guess hard work pays off, huh?" I looked at him. "Hard work." I repeated softly. He didn't even notice the way my voice trembled. When dinner was served, my parents sat at the head of the table like royalty. My father tapped his glass to family. He said, "To the ones who stand together." I almost laughed, but instead I raised my glass too. "To family," I said, "and to truth." My mother frowned slightly, confused. "Truth," I smiled, "you'll see." After dinner, I excused myself to the living room and set my purse on the coffee table. I pulled out the folder of printed papers. My father noticed. "What's that?" he asked. "Just something I thought you should all see," I said. I opened the folder and spread out the documents, the bank statements, the transaction receipts, the investment contributions, everything. The room fell silent. "What is this?" Mason asked, frowning. "Proof," I said calmly, "that this house was bought with money you didn't earn, that our parents used my contribution to pay for it." My father stood up, face turning red. "Lila, that's private family business." I looked him in the eye. So is my daughter's life. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. My mother finally said, "You don't understand how this looks." "I understand perfectly." I interrupted. "I'm done being your secret investor, your emotional punching bag, your invisible daughter. From now on, I'll be what you made me, an outsider. And outsiders don't owe loyalty." I picked up my bag and turned toward the door. "Lila," my father said quietly, "don't do this." I paused, looked back at him, and said, "I'm not doing anything. You did." As I drove home, the radio played softly, but I wasn't really hearing it. I thought of Ava, of her laughter, her courage. And I realized something powerful. Love isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who fights for you when no one else will. That night, after tucking Avi into bed, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed a message to a channel I'd watched recently, Her Retaliation. Their stories had given me courage when I thought I had none left. I didn't tell them my full name, just wrote. I used to think being quiet meant being kind. Now I know silence only protects the wrong people. Then I hit send. And that was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Even after sending that message to Her Retaliation, even after telling myself I had finally closed that chapter, my mind kept replaying every word, every look on their faces when I dropped those documents on the table. I could still hear the sound of my father's glass hitting the plate, my mother's whispering panic, and Mason's confused anger. I'd walked out with my head high, but my chest was still full of noise, the noise of years of being ignored, dismissed, and used. Ava stirred in her sleep, turning over and clutching her stuffed bear. I brushed her hair from her face, whispering, "We're okay now, baby, I promise." But I wasn't sure if I believed it yet. The truth had been spoken. But truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just lights a fire that burns everything you thought you knew. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from Mom. Missed calls from Dad. Even Mason tried texting me. You didn't have to do that in front of everyone. I ignored them all. I dropped Ava off at school and went to work like nothing had happened. But the moment I walked into the diner, my boss, Marcy, took one look at me and said, "You look like you've been through hell." Something like that. I said, tying my apron. She raised a brow. "You want to talk about it?" I shook my head. Not yet, but she didn't push. Marcy was one of those people who understood silence better than most. That week, the silence from my parents turned into something else, pressure. First, it was a voicemail from Mom crying. Then it was Dad angry. "You embarrassed us in front of our family," he said. "We raised you better than that." I almost laughed when I heard it. Raised me. They'd spent my whole life raising Mason. I'd raised myself. Still, part of me felt a sting of guilt. It's a strange thing, family, even when they break your heart, you still bleed for them. One evening, as I was closing up at work, Mason showed up at the diner. I saw him through the window before he came in, standing awkwardly by the door in his designer jacket, like he didn't belong in a place that smelled of grease and coffee. When he finally walked in, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. "Hey," he said, sliding into a booth. I kept wiping the counter. "We're closed. Lila," he sighed. "Please, just talk to me." I turned to face him. "Talk? You mean like how you and Mom and Dad talked about buying you a house while pretending we were broke?" He rubbed his face. "It wasn't my idea. They wanted to help me out. I didn't know it was funded by me. I finished for him. You didn't ask." He hesitated. "Would it have mattered?" That stopped me. For a second, I didn't have words. Then I laughed quietly, bitterly. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about the money, Mason. It's about what it says, about who counts in this family." He leaned forward. "Lila, you've always been dramatic." I snapped. "Dramatic, Mason, my daughter almost died. I begged for help while you were getting champagne poured into your glass at your housewarming party." The color drained from his face. For once, he didn't have a smart reply. He just sat there, looking small and guilty. "I didn't know it was that bad." He whispered, "Of course you didn't." I said, "Because you never ask about anyone but yourself." He looked like he wanted to say something more, but I grabbed my coat and said, "We're done here." When I got home, there were 2 envelopes in my mailbox, both from my parents' address. One was sealed tightly with my mother's neat handwriting. The other was a legal envelope. I knew before I opened it that it wouldn't be good. The first letter was simple. "Lila, please come over. Let's fix this before it goes too far. Love, Mom." The second was worse, a formal letter from my father's lawyer, claiming that I had breached the family trust agreement by accessing bank information without permission. They were threatening to sue me. I sat there on my front steps holding both letters, feeling my hands go cold. My parents were threatening to take me to court over money that was half mine to begin with. For a moment, I felt like that scared little girl again, the one who used to hide in her room while they praised Mason for every little thing he did. But then I looked through the window at Ava sitting on the couch, coloring, humming to herself. I wasn't that little girl anymore. I was a mother, and mothers don't fold, they fight. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I used the last of my savings to pay for a consultation. The lawyer, a calm woman named Erin Vale, listened to everything I said without interrupting. When I showed her the printed records, she raised an eyebrow. "You have proof that your contribution was part of that purchase." "Yes," I said. "Then they don't have a case, you do." Her words hit like a heartbeat. "What do you mean?" "You can file a claim for your share of the property or for reimbursement," she said. "It's legally yours. If they try to sue, they'll lose." I sat there, stunned. For the first time, I had power. Not revenge, not yet, but leverage. That night, I drove to my parents' house again. The lights were on. I didn't knock, I just walked in. My mother was in the kitchen, and she gasped when she saw me. "Lila, what are you at Dad here?" I asked. He appeared from the hallway, his expression tight. "If you came to apologize," I laughed. "Apologize? No, Dad. I came to tell you that your lawyer can save his paper. I'm filing my own claim. You used my money. That makes this house partially mine." My father's jaw tightened. You wouldn't dare. I stepped closer, my voice calm but sharp. Try me. He glared at me. You're destroying this family. I met his eyes. You already did. I'm just done pretending you didn't. My mother's voice shook. Lila, please, we can figure this out. I looked at her, and for a second I almost softened. But then I remembered Ava's little face in the hospital. The fear, the pain, and that softness vanished. You chose your son over my child. You chose comfort over compassion, so now I'm choosing myself. Then I turned and left. By the time I got home, it was raining. Heavy, endless rain that soaked through my jacket and stung my skin. But I didn't care. I felt alive. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was acting. A week later, my lawyer sent the official claim. My parents must have gotten the letter because the next morning, Mom showed up at my door, drenched from the rain. I hesitated, then opened it. Lila, please, she said. This has gone too far. Too far. I said quietly, you tried to take me to court. Tears filled her eyes. Your father. He didn't mean it. He was angry. Angry that I finally stood up for myself. She shook her head, whispering, we were wrong. I was wrong. Mason told us everything you said at the diner. About Ava. About what you've been through. We just didn't see it. For the first time in years, I saw her face without that wall of pride. She looked small, human. I crossed my arms. You didn't want to see it. I know, she said, crying, and I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to help now. I studied her for a long time. Part of me wanted to slam the door. But another part, the tired mother part, wanted to believe her. Help how? I asked finally. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check not for the full surgery cost, but enough to make a difference. I took it from the savings account. Your father doesn't know. I looked up at her. He'll find out. She nodded. Let him. Maybe it's time he learns what real family means. For the first time in a long time, I hugged her. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. That night, I sat beside Ava's bed, holding her hand and whispering, it's going to be okay. And for once I believed it, but deep down I knew it wasn't over. My father wouldn't stay quiet. Mason wouldn't stay out of it. The storm was only beginning, and this time I wasn't going to hide from it. I had finally learned something powerful. Silence is a cage, but truth. Truth is a weapon, and I was done being silent. When morning came, the first thing I noticed wasn't the sunlight, but the silence. A deep, unsettling quiet filled the house. For days, there had been the steady rhythm of fear phone calls, letters, arguments echoing in my head. But now there was just stillness. I almost believed it was peace, until my phone buzzed, a message from Dad. You think you've won. You haven't. You'll regret crossing me. No greeting, no attempt at reconciliation. Just that line sharp as glass. I stared at it for a long time before turning the phone face down. The old me would have cried. The old me would have begged him to understand. But that girl was gone. Now I had something much stronger than their approval. I had Ava, I had truth, and I had proof everything I'd gathered about the trust, the fake transactions, and the missing family funds. That night, after putting Ava to bed, I sat in the quiet of my kitchen with my laptop open. My heart raced, but my mind was clear. I logged into the shared account, the one my father swore I'd never touch again, and went through every line of transactions. Dozens of family expenses, renovations, business loans. That led straight to Mason's luxury house, Dad's secret investments, even Mom's charity fund. That turned out to be her personal shopping card. For years, I had funded their life without knowing it. I took screenshots. Printed statements, highlighted amounts. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore, I was preparing to expose them. The next morning, my father showed up at the diner. The entire place went silent when he walked in. That's how commanding he'd always been. People respected him, a successful businessman, a pillar of the community. They had no idea the rot behind his charm. He sat down at the counter. You've made a mess, Lila. I didn't look at him. You made it first. He leaned closer. You think you can humiliate me. You think you can destroy my name. I finally turned to him. No, Dad, you did that yourself. I'm just done covering it up. His face turned red. You are nothing without this family. I smiled faintly, funny. I was nothing because of this family. He slammed his hand on the counter, the sound echoing through the diner. Marcy came out from the kitchen, ready to step in, but I shook my head. "It's fine," I said quietly. "He's just leaving." He stared at me, hatred flickering behind his eyes. "You'll regret this, maybe," I said, "but at least this time it'll be my choice." He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and walked out. But not before throwing one last line over his shoulder, "You're no daughter of mine." I stood there, trembling not from fear but release. Those words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like freedom. Days passed. I heard nothing from him or Mason. Mom called once, but her voice was small, uncertain, like she was caught between two storms. Meanwhile, Ava's surgery date approached, and I focused on her. Every night, I told her bedtime stories, happy ones, with brave mothers and daughters who beat the monsters. The day of the surgery came. Everything went well. Ava's doctor smiled and said she'd make a full recovery. When I saw her tiny hand squeeze mine in the recovery room, tears streamed down my face. All the pain, the humiliation, the fights, none of it mattered. She was okay. That night, while Ava slept in the hospital bed, I got a message from an unknown number. "You should check tomorrow's news." No name, but I knew the tone, my father. The next morning, I opened my phone and saw it a local headline. "Respected businessman under investigation for financial fraud." I blinked. Read it again and again. There was no mistaking it was him. My father. The article listed misappropriation of funds, tax evasion, and fraudulent loans. It even mentioned that anonymous documents had been sent to the authorities, detailed proof of his hidden accounts. My stomach dropped. I hadn't sent them. Then it hit me. "Mom." I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, voice trembling. "Lila, you did it, didn't you?" She didn't deny it. I couldn't watch him destroy everyone anymore. "I sent everything. What you gave me, what I found myself. It's over, Lila. He's finished." I sat there, stunned. "He's going to come after you." "I know," she said softly. "But I'm done living in fear of him." For the first time in my life, I heard something new in her voice, strength. The same kind of strength I'd fought to find in myself. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. My father's business crumbled. Mason's house was seized as part of the investigation. My parents' perfect image shattered in front of everyone they used to impress. And through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't post, didn't gloat, didn't tell my side of the story. I didn't need to. Justice doesn't always need noise. Sometimes it just needs time and truth. A month later, Mom came to visit Ava and me. She looked tired but peaceful, like someone who had finally exhaled after holding her breath for years. "He's gone," she said quietly, "moved out of state, I don't know where. Do you want to?" I asked. She hesitated, "Not anymore." We sat together on the porch, watching Ava chase bubbles in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and pink. "You know," Mom said, "I used to think love meant loyalty, that keeping the family together was the only way to show it. But you showed me something else, that love without respect isn't love at all." I turned to her, surprised. "Mom," she smiled faintly, "you always were stronger than me. I just didn't see it." For the first time, I believed her. That night, after she left, I tucked Ava into bed and looked around our little home, small, but ours. No lies, no manipulation, just peace. I opened my laptop one last time and uploaded a story to Her Retaliation. It wasn't about revenge or money. It was about survival, about choosing yourself even when it hurts, about understanding that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's power. The post ended with one line. "When my parents said my daughter wasn't real family, they forgot something. Real family isn't blood, it's love that fights for you when the world doesn't. And I'd fight for her every single time." The next morning, my inbox was flooded thousands of messages from strangers, people who had lived the same pain, people who had stayed silent for too long. I realized something then. Revenge wasn't what I wanted. Closure was, and I had it. Weeks later, as Ava and I drove past the neighborhood where my parents' house used to stand, she pointed at the empty lot. Mommy, who lived there. I smiled. Just some people we used to know. She giggled, kicking her little legs. Were they nice? I thought for a moment, then said, "They tried to be." And with that, I drove on into a future that finally belonged to us.